I just finished reading this book out loud to my computer. Um, if there's anybody who's watching this video because you've watched other videos, then you probably are aware that this is a habit that I developed over the past pandemic, and a little bit before that, but mostly since the pandemic started. And and it was the last part of this book is the last chapter is 22 pages, which is it's more than twice as long as most of the other chapters. It was 43 straight minutes of reading out loud, which a lot of people wouldn't want to do, but I considered it like a big exercise, like the marathon that I've been training for. So I wanted, on the occasion of finishing the book, which, let's see, there's a Christmas Carol and a Time Machine, Rip Van Winkle, I guess, even though it's not even a novella, Herland, and then this is my fifth complete book, novel, novella, whatever, that I have read to YouTube, and so I wanted to make a video, since I'm not looking back at any childhood favorite television show at the moment, just kind of talking about why I do it, and why you might want to consider doing it as well. Just as far as reading books out loud, I did go to college to become an actor, and still hope to succeed in that field. But so looking at pages and then saying out loud what's on the page, not a completely out of left field thing for me to be interested in. Ditto with singing training. There are a few instances of me singing on this YouTube channel as well. In fact, maybe I'll make one of them one of the videos that pops up, or maybe I'll make one of the videos that pops up my senior recital. So that'll be fun. But so looking at a page, seeing things on it, and making noises based on seeing what's on that page, something that I've been doing for a long time. But as far as doing it with a novel, that's not as much of a habit. Certainly, it's been done in my presence. The first time I read things like Frankenstein and Dracula, they were mostly read to me by my parents. And Ditto the Phantom of the Opera, and so many things. The first Harry Potter book, and then the first 5 chapters of the second Harry Potter book were read to me and my brothers before they completely lost interest. I think my mom lost interest, and a year or so later, I gained interest again. So it's been around. I think I read some of Uncle Tom's Cabin when that was assigned to my brother because I had read it for the summer before 8th grade, and so I read some of it to him. And then, in class, in English class, in high school, college, probably middle school too, we would read passages of the novel out loud. In fact, one of the few occasions on which I cast a play, part of it was reading The Great Gatsby aloud in class. A friend of mine read a passage. It included something about I want to pluck one of those clouds out of the sky, put you in it, and push it around like a pram, or something like that. The character of Daisy, I think, says that. And that person, this was senior year, I think. Yeah, it was senior year, maybe. Pretty sure it was senior year because that spring I did my senior project, which was directing Wilkie Collins' adaptation of his own novel, The Woman in White, and I cast her as the Woman in White based on her reading that. She was not one of the big actor persons in my class, but she had done a little, and she was willing. So there's that. And getting back to Harry Potter, I've read the Harry Potter books probably more often each than any other book. See, I've read Frankenstein 3 times, so including the time that it was read to me, and probably there are Harry Potter books that I have read 4 times or more. But on one reread, perhaps leading up to the last movie coming out. And the project was reading them all over the course of a single month, from January 1st to January 31st, all 7 novels and all 3 supplementary books. I found myself occasionally reading Snape's lines out loud, or at the time I was also taking notes on the character of Dumbledore, so I would read his lines out loud, and I enjoyed it because it's acting. Nobody was around to hear me for the most part, although I have occasionally read for the malevolent supernatural force I live with, and but I felt like I got it a little bit more from having said it out loud. What the characters were. It's a big long essay on Dumbledore on elsewhere on my Cantonaut blog, and that's what these notes were for. And I felt like I got more into it by saying his lines out loud. And I think there were times when I just read entire passages out loud, whether it was narration or somebody else's lines or whatever, and I had fun doing that. And between then and now, I've probably read out loud, but not a lot. I think the first videos on this YouTube channel that are me reading out loud are when the Malevolent Force and I went up to Sleepy Hollow, and I wanted to take videos of the old Dutch church and this beautiful sculpture of the Headless Horseman, and while reading passages from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which I don't have it right here, but you've seen it if you've been watching the channel, which very few people have. Because when I was reading Rip Van Winkle, I was reading out of a book that has both Rip Van Winkle and Sleepy Hollow, and come October, I'm planning to read Sleepy Hollow. But I had that little book, I had it in my pocket, took it out, I would read, and this malevolent force would take video, and I think those are the first times that I would read passages, just for the effect of this is the actual old Dutch church that is being referred to in this piece of classic literature. It's a real place. It's based on a real place, and it still exists, and you can visit it. So it was kind of a touristy thing. It was kind of an Atlas Obscura, residual Atlas Obscura instinct of mine. And so there was that, and I believe it was shortly thereafter that I did my video, which I'd been kind of wanting to do, because I every October, except this last one, I memorize afresh The Raven, because I like reciting it. It's fun to recite, and I've always wanted to perform it, but I haven't had the opportunity, because at the Malevolent Forces Halloween parties, I'm not allowed to put on a show. But I had this idea that to do it, there is a, well, it's not up there now, but, the Raven is over there. And up there, where you can't see either of these things, is a bust that the Malevolent Force made in one of her art classes in college. And I like to put the Raven up on top of the bust for Halloween, because the Raven on the bust of Pallas. And I got just the right angle with the computer, and I hissed the poem into the screen, the camera there, and the little microphone. And it's not the best microphone, and it's not the best camera, and I put it on recently and you can barely hear it, and I'll probably, hopefully, do another better version of it someday. But I did it from memory, and I did it kind of like a hostage situation, like at the end of the poem, he's essentially in a hostage situation, and the Raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming casts his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies something on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. He's in a hostage situation. He is trapped by the Raven, and so I kind of did it as the Raven, it's back there. It can hear me, which is why I think the audio is too low on that video. But it was an early attempt. Flash forward to Christmas that year. I like one thing I like to do on social media that I've liked to do for a long time is kind of decorate my social media for Christmas. All Christmas themed stuff. Same ditto Halloween, and I suppose there was a time with Valentine's Day and other holidays, but that was back in my slate reading days when there were so many articles to put up. But I thought, well, I'll do the Yes Virginia letter, which I'd always wanted to perform. It's a nifty little monologue. I'll do it as I'm receiving the letter and then I'm answering it. And I read a little book of Louisa May Alcott Christmas stories, and one of them in particular I really liked. And so I set up a little station by the tree, and I read that, and that was my first time doing that. And the malevolent force took the video on my phone, and then I uploaded it. And that was Christmas of 2019 that I did these things. So I had by then done the kind of laid the groundwork. Kind of, this is something that I can do. So when the lockdown and quarantine started, I I wasn't for me to and this is kind of excuses, but I'm not a medical person, not any kind of essential worker, and I just wasn't. I figured if I can't make the masks, I don't know sewing, they'd be unsafe masks, and I don't know, because friends of mine were making them and I admired them, but I thought people are stuck inside, perhaps I can put stuff out there to be entertaining. And so I started the first one. Well, the very first I think was some Valentine's Day or other. I did Sonnet 17 from Shakespeare, which I learned in high school and have never forgotten. And that was up there. That might have been 2019 or the Valentine's Day before the quarantine started. But the first kind of literary thing that I did was I did a video of me washing my hands while reciting Because I Could Not Stop for Death by Emily Dickinson. And I thought it was a clever thing. It's kind of like wash your hands for as long as it takes to recite I Could Not Stop for Death, as a kind of I'm not going to let the illness get me, I'm going to be safe and wash my hands. But then when the pandemic started and people were talking about rich people going off and trying to seclude themselves in their mansions or whatever, and people were making reference to another Edgar Allan Poe piece, The Mask of the Red Death, which I had never read. And so I decided, okay, well, I'll read it. And since people are talking about it, but they're probably not, like me, they probably haven't read it, I will make it accessible in my way. It's easier to listen to someone read something than to read it yourself. And so I did The Mask of the Red Death. And then the next week, I forget the sequence in which I did these things, but I read passages from, I read the Monsters Monologue from Frankenstein. I read passages from The Woman in White from Jane Eyre. A short story by Mark Twain. Is He Living or Is He Dead? I think it's called. I should know. I'm trying to turn it into a musical. And stuff like that. Tried to make it regular. Tried to make it interesting. And then I stopped for a while because I just got burned out on making videos. I didn't think I had any direction or anything like that. But I had this. I had done these things, and I just had to figure out how to, make them work. And I think I picked it up when last October I had my Universal Monsters thing. I did the Monsters at Midnight, and I decided that if I'm going to watch one of these movies every night, I'm not going to reread each book totally, but I could read passages from the books that inspired the movies and have little passages of them, in the morning, and then do the Monsters at Midnight thing after I watch the movie late at night. And so that started, and then the rest is the history of if you go to the videos part of the channel. November is murder mysteries month for me, reading wise, other themes, but murder mysteries, and Sherlock Holmes month. And so I looked up most Sherlock Holmes stories are as long as the last chapter of Jekyll and Hyde, and so I didn't want to do them all in one. I never wanted to do them all in one video, but I wasn't comfortable with breaking things up yet. I became comfortable with breaking things up, and I did in 4 parts because I'd done Conversation with a Mummy by Edgar Allan Poe for 4 of the evenings when I was watching mummy movies, and I'd broken it up into 4. 4 pieces. And so I did that with the Case of the Speckled Band, the Sherlock Holmes story, my favorite Sherlock Holmes story. And I did that, and as I was doing that, I thought, well, I can break more things up. And so I decided to break up A Christmas Carol into 25 pieces, the 25 Days of Christmas. And that was the first time that that I kind of thought, I need to continue to find better ways to do this, because one, I was obsessed with absolutely perfect readings, no problems, no hiccups at all. And so I would, get toward the end, and then there'd be a hiccup. I'd have to re-record the whole thing. And these were mostly between 4 and 7 minutes long. And I was doing multiple at a time, all the time, all the while wearing my Christmas button down. And that carried into the time machine in January. January is my birthday month, so I like to read. I like to populate my reading schedule with things I already know I love, and I loved the Time Machine the first time I read it. And so I thought, well, I'll break it up into 31 pieces, do the whole month. Not 27 leading up to my birthday, but 31 for the whole month. And I'll do them in the morning, and I'll rehearse them first to make sure I don't hiccup. Well, I still hiccuped even though I rehearsed. So by the end, I had stopped rehearsing, and I think that was when or maybe a little later, but gradually I let go of the idea that these were going to be perfect. And I justified it by, well, if I was reading it out loud to a person, it's live performance. But it's live performance and you haven't memorized it, so it might go wrong. And if I'm reading it out loud to a person, which was the whole thing started, I want to make videos for people that people can take time and they feel like someone's there with them, reading to them. And something to do in quarantine and lockdown. That's how the thing really got going. If I'm sitting and reading to somebody, I might screw up, and I don't know how to edit. I mean, I kind of know how to edit videos, but not videos where I'm talking, and I don't know how to splice together like with an audiobook. So I gradually got rid of that, and I broke up Rip Van Winkle for February into 10 pieces, and all the while I was doing the thing where I would record both the literary read and the looking back video back to back. So only actually doing recordings 2 days a week, but having 4 days worth of things to release. And so by the time I got to Herland, and I was looking at the which I did for March's Women's History Month, and so I figured Herland is a good one by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And so I decided to just do it by chapters. There are 12 chapters, which I knew meant I would go past March, but I'd also starting to get into this doesn't have to be perfectly lined up with months thing. It should just be what it should be. And, these stories are already broken up in a certain way that makes sense by the original authors, so I don't need to break them up myself. So probably in the future I'll do Christmas Carol or the Time Machine again, and just do them by chapters. But something like Rip Van Winkle doesn't have chapters, so I can break that up, but I should do it in a way that makes sense when I do Sleepy Hollow. And so then we find ourselves here, and this was mostly short breaks, but then the very last thing, which is an all-encompassing, here's what happened, as Monk would say, that got to be, that was very, very long, 43 minutes. Longest video I've done in a long time. So that's how it came about, and there are also other reasons. I mean, that's how it evolved. Those are my reasons along the way, but I've also just come up with other reasons why I like doing it. I grasp the stories more, remember them better when I'm reading them out loud. The first time I read this book, having mostly been exposed to the musical, I was disappointed, I was confused, I didn't really like it. This time I liked it a lot more because I was in it. I felt like I was part of it, and I really got it. I remember the characters' names and personalities more than I did last time because it's not the musical. And it is in fact very different in focus and in style and tone. And Herland also. I loved Herland. I've loved it for years, but reading it out loud, saying the lines of the characters gave me a better sense of the book. and it's also it's good practice for when eventually I am reading to people. Hope in whatever context. There are many contexts in which one might find oneself reading to people. Um, and I like sharing. Like, it's the same reason I started writing on the blog, the same reason I started doing the looking back videos. I like sharing my love of these things with either people who are there or random whoever's watching on the internet. I just like the idea of just putting one more thing out there that says this is good. You should look into this. Let me help you. Um, and also, you know, because since I started the blog, I've gotten for a while at least I had very strict rules about if I read something, I've got to blog about it. So I shouldn't read the same thing more than once because then I have to blog about it twice. But this is an excuse to read Jekyll and Hyde again and not blog about it again. Of course, this is kind of vlogging about the experience, but it's an excuse to read a lot of at least the shorter things, or to dip into The Woman in White or Jane Eyre, the longer things. And also, next week I'll be doing a couple of passages from Life on the Mississippi, which I just read, and I marked those particular parts as, I don't want to read the whole thing, but these are really good. I want to share these. So it's another thing to do while I'm reading something. If I'm not reading it to YouTube, I can read and be like, okay, I'm going to do that chapter, I'm going to do that chapter, because they're particularly good. They advertise for the cause of reading the book. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Next week I'll do the Mark Twain passages. The week after that, I got something from The Woman in White and something from Jane Eyre. I'm going to continue doing these one-off things that aren't part of any particular series. I've got a couple of more ideas before I kind of peter off, and then probably don't do a lot for a while, but we'll see. So I'll put my recital up, and I'll put some video of me reading something up, and you can check those. They'll be there, and happy reading.